Some things on the internet are not meant to be found. They lurk in the shadows, waiting.
The headlamp died at 400 feet below the surface. That's the detail that gets me every time I read Dale's account. Not the sounds he heard after. Not what he found pressed against that wall. It's that specific moment, 400 feet down, in a shaft that hadn't seen a living soul in over a decade, when the light just stopped. And in that absolute, suffocating darkness, something knocked back. But we'll get to Dale. They shut the Harwick mine in 1987. The official report said structural instability. 2 words. Filed, stamped, archived. Case closed. Except 3 workers crawled out of a shaft that had been sealed for 6 years the night before that report was written. 3 men, covered in something that wasn't coal dust. And not one of them, not one, ever spoke about what they found down there. Not to journalists, not to their families, not even to each other, as far as anyone could tell. They just stopped talking about it, about all of it. That's what these stories have in common. The silence after, the reports that don't quite add up, the dates that keep aligning in ways nobody can explain. Tonight, I have 5 of them. 5 closed-down mines. 5 accounts that the official record either buried or never acknowledged. And I want to be upfront with you. Story 5 almost didn't make it into this video. I sat on it for 3 weeks. Part of me still thinks I should have left it alone. But you should know what's down there. You deserve to know. If you work in mining, or you know someone who does, send them this. I mean that. Let's start underground. Story 1 comes from a Reddit post that has since been deleted, but not before I saved it. Dale Mercer was not a man who scared easily. That's the first thing you need to understand about him. 31 years in industrial maintenance. Refineries, rail yards, a decommissioned nuclear cooling facility in rural Ohio that he described, and I'm quoting directly from his post here, as a little spooky, but mostly just sad. Dale had seen the inside of places that would make most people turn around at the entrance. He wasn't brave, he'd tell you. He just had a high threshold for uncomfortable. There's a difference. He was hired in September of 2011 to conduct a structural inspection of the Blackwell coal mine in McDowell County, West Virginia. The mine had been shuttered in 1974 after a partial collapse killed 3 men in the lower tunnels. Their bodies were never recovered. The company that owned the land at the time simply sealed the affected shafts, filed the paperwork, and walked away. By 2011, a property investment group out of Charleston was considering purchasing the site. For what purpose, Dale never found out. And they needed someone to walk the accessible sections and assess whether anything was structurally salvageable. Dale was that someone. 3 days, flat fee, expenses covered. He'd done a dozen jobs like it. He described the mine on that first morning the way you'd describe any abandoned industrial site. Cold, quiet. The particular kind of quiet, he said, that you only get underground, where there's no wind, no ambient noise, nothing living to fill the space. Just the sound of your own breathing and your boots on rock. He noted the stillness specifically, not peaceful stillness. The kind that feels intentional, like whatever usually makes noise in a place has decided, collectively, to stop. He spent the first day mapping the accessible tunnels. Nothing unusual. Water damage in the eastern corridor, some ceiling degradation near the original entrance shaft, a stretch of track that had buckled under decades of ground pressure. He ate his lunch in the equipment room near the surface, called his wife, Sandra, around 2 in the afternoon. "How is it?" she asked. "Dark," he said. "Funny man. Quiet too. Like, weirdly quiet. It's a mine, Dale." "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I know." He didn't mention the quiet again that day, but he noted it in his post. He noted it like a man who couldn't quite let it go. The knocking started that first night. He was bunking in a site trailer about 40 yards from the main entrance. The investment group had arranged it, basic setup, cot, and a space heater, and he was somewhere between awake and asleep when he heard it. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 knocks. Deep and low, more felt than heard, like it was traveling up through the ground itself rather than through the air. He lay still for a moment, then chalked it up to the mind settling. Old rock, old timber, old infrastructure contracting in the cold. He'd heard stranger things in older buildings. He went back to sleep. He mentioned it to his site contact, a young guy named Marcus who checked in each morning. Marcus shrugged. Old mines do that, he said. Pressure shifts. You'll tune it out. Dale nodded. Marcus didn't work underground. Dale noticed that, too. By the second day, the knocking had developed a pattern that he couldn't quite dismiss. It seemed, and he was careful with this word, careful the way a practical man is careful when he's about to say something that sounds insane, responsive. When he moved into a new section, the knocking followed. When he stopped walking, it stopped a few seconds later. When he started again, so did it. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Always 3. He called Sandra that evening and didn't mention any of it. He talked about the weather and what he wanted for dinner when he got home and whether the gutters needed cleaning before the first frost. Normal things. He held on to them the way you hold a railing in the dark. There's an old piece of mining folklore, goes back centuries, to the tin miners of Cornwall, about creatures called knockers. Little spirits, some versions say. The souls of dead miners, say others. They live in the rock, in the deep places, and they knock to warn the living of coming collapses. Some miners swore by them, left offerings of food at the tunnel mouths, treated the sounds with reverence. The important thing, in every version of the story, was this. If the knockers call to you, it means something is coming. The question Dale couldn't answer, the question that clearly stayed with him long after he drove away from McDowell County, was whether they were warning him or calling him closer. He found the handprints on the 3rd day. He was working the far end of the northern tunnel, the section closest to where the 1974 collapse had occurred. The tunnel terminated at a bricked-up wall, a proper seal job, mortar and cinder block, solid. He was running his flashlight along the base of it, checking for water infiltration when he saw them. Pressed into the face of the wall, on the mine's side, the inside, were handprints. A dozen, maybe more. Dark. Fresh. The mortar around the edges of some of them was still slightly soft. He stood there for a long time. He didn't write down how long. He just wrote, I looked at them for a while. Then I picked up my kit and I walked out. I didn't run. I just didn't stop walking until I was outside. He called the investment group from the parking area and told them he was done. He drove 4 hours home without stopping. A week later, the buyers pulled out of the sale. The county condemned the site 6 weeks after that, and in January of 2012, they dynamited the entrance shafts closed. Permanently. The local paper ran a small item about it. Routine demolition, historical liability, the usual language. But the piece included one detail. Almost an aside, a throwaway line buried in the final paragraph that I keep coming back to. The blasting crew, it reported, had experienced an auditory anomaly during the detonation sequence. The exact phrase used was, a sound resembling rhythmic percussion originating from below the blast site that ceased approximately 4 seconds after the final charge. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I'll come back to the demolition crew's report because it connects to story 4 in a way that will make your skin crawl. But for now, just sit with that. Whatever was in the Blackwall shaft, it was still knocking, even as the mountain came down on top of it. Knockers are old folklore. Miners have believed in them for centuries. But the next story isn't folklore. It's on record. And it's worse. His name was Robert Callahan. He was 81 years old, a retired copper miner from Butte, Montana, and he died on a Tuesday morning in March of 2019 in a hospice facility outside Missoula. His granddaughter, Claire, was holding his hand. She shared the story once, in a comment on a mining history forum that has since gone private. She said her grandfather had been largely unresponsive for 2 days before the end. Then, a few hours before he passed, he opened his eyes, looked directly at her, and whispered 7 words. He showed us the way out, but he didn't come from above. Then he closed his eyes. 81 years of life, and those were the last 7 words he chose to spend. To understand what Robert meant, we have to go back to 1961, September 4th. The Copper Ridge Mine, Silver Bow County, Montana. 11 men on the morning shift. Good men, family men, most of them. This was the American working class at the height of the Cold War, a time when men like these were the backbone of something people still believed in. They had lunch pails and carpool arrangements and kids in Little League. Robert Callahan was 33. His wife Margaret was pregnant with their second child. He kissed her goodbye that morning the way you do when you're not thinking about it. The way you do when you assume there will be 10,000 more mornings exactly like it. At 11:17 a.m., a section of the lower tunnel gave way. Survivors on the surface described the sound as a held breath releasing, a deep, resonant exhalation from the earth itself, followed by a vibration that knocked tools off workbenches 60 feet above. The collapse sealed the lower access shaft completely. 11 men were unaccounted for. The rescue operation began within the hour, and what followed were 9 days that the town of Butte did not sleep through. The vigil outside the mine entrance became its own small city. Wives and mothers in folding chairs, priests, local press, a Red Cross tent, children who didn't fully understand but understood enough to stay quiet. Rescue crews worked in rotating shifts, drilling, shoring, inch by agonizing inch, communicating through a narrow pipe threaded down to the trapped men on day 2. The 11 were alive. Injured, broken ribs, lacerations, one man with a fractured leg, but alive, sheltering in a natural pocket of the collapsed section with just enough air to survive on. They were told help was coming. They said they knew. They also said, through that narrow pipe, that they were not alone down there. The rescue teams assumed they meant each other. They did not mean each other. On the morning of day 10, the crews broke through. The rescue chamber, a rough, low-ceilinged hollow about 30 feet across, was illuminated by the rescuers' lights for the first time in 9 days. 11 men expected. The rescue coordinator, a man named Frank Hessler, would later tell his wife, who told her sister, who eventually told a historian documenting the Butte mining community, that he stood at the opening and counted twice. Then a third time, because the number kept coming out wrong. 12. 11 miners, gaunt and hollow-eyed, blinking against the light, and one more figure seated apart from the others, back against the far wall, completely still. The 11 would not look at him. Not a glance. Not even when the rescuers began moving toward the group. They stared at the ground, at the ceiling, at their own hands. Anywhere but at the figure in the corner. He was wearing mining gear. That detail is important. Old gear, a canvas jacket, a hard hat of a style not manufactured since the 1920s, a lamp on a belt that used carbide rather than electricity. He was not injured. He was not gaunt. He looked, by every account, completely and utterly calm. When the rescue team approached him, he stood without assistance. He was cooperative. He didn't resist. He simply didn't respond to English, to gestures, to his own reflection in a rescuer's visor. He looked through people the way a window looks through a wall. He was taken to St. James Hospital along with the 11 miners. Admitted, given a room on the second floor. The attending physician noted his vitals were normal, his physical condition unremarkable. No signs of dehydration or malnutrition despite 9 days underground with 11 men who were severely affected by both. On the second night, a nurse went to check on him at 2 a.m. The room was empty, the bed had not been slept in, the window was closed from the inside, there was no record, the nursing staff discovered, of any 12th patient being admitted. No intake form, no chart, no record of the physician's notes. Nothing. It was as if the paperwork had decided independently that he had never existed. Naturally, the government's official explanation was collective hysteria. 11 men, traumatized, oxygen-deprived, had shared a hallucination so vivid and synchronized that multiple rescue workers also experienced it upon entering the chamber. Because, apparently 11 hardened Montana miners and a trained rescue crew all hallucinated the same calm stranger in 40-year-old work gear at the exact same moment. Sure, totally reasonable. Nothing to see here. The 11 men never discussed it. Not publicly, not privately, not with each other as far as anyone could tell. Robert Callahan went home to Margaret. His daughter was born 3 weeks later. He worked another 20 years in the mines without incident, raised a family, lived a quiet life, and carried those 7 words all the way to the end. He showed us the way out, but he didn't come from above. I've spent a long time with that sentence. The way out, meaning the 12th man knew the mine, knew it well enough to guide 11 people through a collapsed tunnel system in total darkness toward a point where rescuers could reach them. And the second half, not from above, not a rescue worker, not dropped down through a shaft, something that came from another direction entirely. The 12th man's description, the old gear, the stillness, the eyes that looked through rather than at, matches something reported in Story 4. Reported by people who had no knowledge of Copper Ridge, no connection to Montana, no reason to invent the same details. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think any of what I'm about to tell you is coincidence. Governments are good at making things disappear. The next story? They tried. They really tried. Don't know what Mara saw. I didn't look. She told me not to look. I listened. That's the only reason I'm writing this. That was posted on October 14th, 2009, by a user named Joel underneath on a now-archived urban exploration forum called Subsurface. 3 days after the original thread went silent. Let me show you what led up to it. Mara, username Minerva Descends, real name never confirmed, was not a thrill seeker. That's the first thing the regulars on Subsurface would tell you. She'd been active on the forum since 2006, documenting abandoned infrastructure across the American Southwest with a level of methodical care that made most other explorers look like tourists. She logged entry and exit times. She photographed structural hazards. She carried atmospheric testing equipment and knew how to read it. When Mara posted a trip report, people read it like a field manual. She was, by the standards of that community, as close to professional as amateur gets. In early October 2009, she posted a thread titled, Nevada Silver, 8 levels, going in Saturday. Who knows this one? The responses were immediate. 14 replies within the first hour. Most were logistical, air quality concerns at depth, a note about the access road being washed out on the eastern approach. But 2 responses stood out. The first, from a user called DepthCharger99, done levels 1 through 6. Don't go to 7. Seriously, I'm not being dramatic. Just don't. No further elaboration. When Mara replied asking him to expand, he never responded. His account showed no activity after that date. The second comment came from an account with no post history created the same day the thread was posted. Username. Below the seventh it read, "They left the candles for a reason, don't move them." That was all. The account was never active again. Mara acknowledged both posts with characteristic pragmatism. She wrote, "Noted. We'll assess on site. Joel's coming. We'll have comms and a hard turnaround at 4 hours." The bravado of someone who has descended into 50 abandoned structures and come back from every single one. The bravado of someone who has not yet encountered the thing that breaks it. The mine itself, she didn't name it in the thread, and the location has never been definitively confirmed, had 8 documented levels, each roughly 40 feet B. Below the last, it operated as a silver extraction site from 1889 until its closure in 2000. The official reason given was a gas leak in the lower levels. Local accounts said something different. They said 3 workers died on level 7 in 1998 under circumstances that the company classified internally as undetermined cause, a phrase that appears nowhere in any public record because the public record, conveniently, contains almost nothing about this mine at all. The gas leak explanation was filed 2 years after the deaths. 2 years is a long time to wait to discover a gas leak. Mara's descent report was posted in real time, updated every 30 to 40 minutes from a tablet with a signal booster she'd rigged near the entrance. Levels 1 through 3, standard decay, collapsed equipment, rusted track, water pooling in the low points. Beautiful in the way that all ruined things are beautiful. That particular grief of machinery that will never run again. Levels 4 and 5. The air quality readings spiked briefly on level 4, then normalized. Mara noted it, flagged it, kept going. The forum watched in real time, a Greek chorus of armchair explorers trading theories in the replies. Probably methane pocket. Common at this depth. She's fine. Level 6. The update was shorter. 3 sentences. Something's different down here. Can't place it. Air is fine. Joel says he doesn't like the sound of this level. I agree, but I can't explain why. The forum went quieter after that post. Less theorizing. More waiting. Level 7. She found the altar. Her description ran to 4 paragraphs, and I have read them so many times I could recite them in my sleep. In the center of Level 7's main chamber, a wide, low space where the ore carts once staged for loading someone had arranged a circle of mining equipment pickaxe. 3 helmets, a rusted lunch pail, coil of rope, photographs laminated against the damp, arranged at intervals around the outer edge, and candles, pillar candles, the thick institutional kind, set into the rock at the 4 compass points of the circle. Not burned down to stubs. Fresh. Recently lit and recently extinguished. The wax still soft at the base of each one. Someone was still coming here. Regularly. Purposefully. Someone had been tending this place. Mara did not move the candles. Whatever else she was not stupid. Her final update from level 7 ended with, "Joel wants to turn back. I think we go to 8. I think we need to see what's." That was it. Mid-sentence. Posted at 1:47 p.m. on October 11th, 2009. The thread received 43 replies over the following 3 days, ranging from concern to panic to the specific dread of a community watching something go wrong in slow motion and being able to do nothing about it. No response from Mara. No response from Joel. The forum moderators debated contacting authorities. Someone did. Apparently, a welfare check was requested, though whether it was fulfilled has never been confirmed. Then on October 14th, Joel posted. He didn't explain where he'd been. He didn't describe level 8. He said, in full, "I don't know what Mara saw. I didn't look. She told me not to look. I listened. That's the only reason I'm writing this. She's okay. She just needs time. Please stop tagging us." The thread was quiet for 6 weeks. Then, on November 28th, Minerva Descends posted for the last time. One line. No preamble, no context, no response to any of the questions waiting for her. "I'm okay. Don't go to level 8. She never posted again. The account still exists. It has never been logged into since that date before the thread was fully archived. Mara had attached a photograph to one of her level 7 updates, a photo that was later deleted, though not before several users saved and discussed it. The description of what it showed, markings on the level 8 access wall. Any of this before August 2014. I am a scientist. I quantify. I verify. I publish. And I am telling you that I spent 17 pages writing in a language I do not know in a mine that should have stayed closed in 1913. I cannot explain that. What I can tell you is that the 7th level is not a coincidence. It is a threshold, and whatever is below it, whatever has always been below it, is exactly as patient as every culture on Earth has been trying to warn us. You already know that Mara found the altar on level 7 of a Nevada silver mine. You know that Dale heard the knockers, the Cornish deep earth spirits, in a West Virginia coal shaft. And you may have noticed that the 12th man at Copper Ridge, still, calm, dressed in 40-year-old gear, appearing from below, matches the description Voss gave in her interview of what the deep earth entity looks like when it chooses to be seen. Not monstrous, never monstrous, just present, just patient, just watching you with eyes that have been open in the dark for longer than your species has had language. Voss's research, before she locked it away and stopped responding to academic inquiries, referenced one more mine, one more account that she called, in a footnote she later tried to have redacted, the clearest and most catastrophic direct encounter on record. She didn't name it in the published version, but I found it. It's our final story tonight. Patricia Voss said every mining culture on Earth has a name for what's down there. So let me tell you about the one place where someone decided to find out if the name was right. The stone is sitting on my desk as I record this. It's about the size of a fist. Dark gray, almost black, the kind of rock you'd pull from deep underground. Compressed, dense, cold in a way that doesn't seem to change regardless of the temperature in the room. And carved into its surface, shallow but deliberate, are markings. Geometric, precise, repeating in a pattern that is almost but never quite symmetrical, the way a language repeats sounds without repeating meaning. I've been looking at it for 3 weeks. I still don't know what it says, but I know where it's been, and I know what it cost the man who carried it out. The Erdmann Mine, Thuringia, Germany, 1987. I need you to notice that year, 1987. The same year the Harwick mine was shut down, the mine I mentioned in the very first minute of this video, the one where 3 workers crawled out of a sealed shaft and never spoke again. I don't think that's coincidence. I'm not sure anything about tonight has been coincidence. The Erdmann site was not a conventional mining operation. It was small, experimental, semi-private, backed by a West German industrial corporation whose name I have been unable to verify because the company dissolved in 1989 and its records, as far as anyone can determine, do not exist in any public archive. What is known is this: 17 workers were brought to the site in the spring of 1987. They were not local men. They were recruited from 3 different regions, paid significantly above market rate, and required to sign confidentiality agreements before beginning work. The official designation of the project, on the one document that has ever surfaced, was Deep Geological Assessment. Experimental. No further detail. They were told they were looking for mineral deposits. Most of them believed it. They found the chamber on the 7th level, by every account that has been reconstructed. From interviews conducted years later with some of the 14 men who left, the chamber was immediately, viscerally wrong. Not dangerous wrong, not structurally compromised. Wrong in a deeper sense, the kind your body registers before your brain catches up. It was large, cathedral large, the ceiling lost in shadow above their lights. The walls were smooth in a way that rock is not naturally smooth, not worn by water or compressed by time, but finished, deliberately finished. And across every surface, floor, walls, ceiling, were markings, geometric, precise, carved at a depth and consistency that would have required tools, time, and intention on a scale that no explanation they were given could account for. The corporation's site supervisor contacted someone above him. Instructions came back within 6 hours. Go deeper. Find what's below the chamber. 14 men refused. They put down their equipment, walked to the surface, collected their pay, and left. Several of them said, in later years, that they couldn't explain why they refused. Only that standing in that chamber had produced a certainty in them, unanimous and wordless, that going deeper was something they were not willing to do. One man described it as the feeling of standing in a room where something is asleep and understanding, in your bones, that you must not be the one to wake it. 3 men stayed. Ernst Brauer, 34, the site's most experienced structural engineer, and 2 others whose names have never been confirmed. 2 days later, at approximately 3 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Thursday again, I notice a truck driver on a rural road outside the mine site found a man sitting in the middle of the road, sitting cross-legged, hands in his lap, completely still. The driver stopped. The man looked up. He was uninjured. He was calm, not the calm of someone who has processed something, but the calm of someone who has gone somewhere beyond processing. The driver later said his eyes were the part he couldn't forget. Not wild, not frightened, just finished somehow, like a clock that has run all the way down. Ernst Brauer, carrying one thing, a piece of stone, dark gray, carved with markings the truck driver couldn't identify and didn't try to. He placed the stone on the hood of the truck, carefully, deliberately, like he was setting down something he had been asked to deliver. Then he stood up and began walking back toward the mine. The driver called the police. Officers intercepted Ernst before he reached the entrance. He did not resist. He did not speak. He was taken into psychiatric care, where he spent 6 weeks. The records from that period, the fragments his daughter was able to obtain decades later, show one consistent notation across dozens of sessions. The patient drew continuously. On paper, on the margins of assessments, on the wall of his room when paper wasn't available. The same markings. Every time. The symbols from the chamber on the 7th level, reproduced from memory with an accuracy that his psychiatrist noted was unlikely to be coincidental, and then, apparently, declined to pursue further. He was released after 6 weeks. He moved to a small village in Bavaria. He worked in a limited capacity. He did not speak about the mine to anyone. His daughter, Anna, told me, and I want to be precise about this because her words deserve precision, that he was not the man who had gone in. She said, he wasn't a scared man before. He was a careful man, methodical. He planned things. After the mine, he was neither. He wasn't scared and he wasn't careful. He was just elsewhere. Like most of him had stayed behind, and what came home was only the part that knew how to go through the motions. Ernst Brauer died in 2003. He was 50 years old. The cause of death was recorded as cardiac arrest, but his daughter said the Physicians were privately unable to identify any cardiac pathology that should have killed a man his age and physical condition. He simply stopped. Elsewhere to the end. Anna contacted me 8 months ago. She had found this channel through a thread about underground mythology, Voss's published work, actually, before the redactions. She sent photographs of the stone first. Then, when I confirmed what I was seeing, she mailed it to me. It arrived in a padded envelope with a handwritten note that said only. He would have wanted someone to keep asking. So let me tell you what the stone confirms. The markings on its surface match, with a precision I cannot attribute to chance. The symbols Dr. Patricia Voss wrote across 17 pages of her field journal during 40 hours she cannot remember in a Northern Ontario gold mine in 2014. They matched the geometric patterns described by forum users who saw Mara's photograph from level 8 of the Nevada silver mine in 2009, the photograph that was deleted and that Mara herself never explained. And there is a photograph taken by a rescue worker during the breakthrough at Copper Ridge, Montana, in 1961, that shows the wall of the rescue chamber behind the 11 men and their 12th companion. In the background, half in shadow, there are markings on the rock. I have had that photograph and Anna's stone examined by the same imaging analyst. The correlation is, in her words, beyond the threshold of coincidence. Same symbols. West Virginia, Montana, Nevada, Ontario, Germany. Different decades, different depths, different people who had no knowledge of each other, no shared language, no possible coordination. One thing in common, the 7th level, the patience, the markings left behind like a signature on everything it touches, and 2 men who went deeper than Ernst and never came out. Their names unknown, their fate unrecorded, the corporation dissolved, the mine sealed, no investigation that anyone has been able to find. I'm having the stone analyzed further, a linguist in Edinburgh, an archaeologist who specializes in pre-Bronze Age symbolic systems. If you know what these markings are, if you've seen them before, anywhere, in any context, you know where to find me. Drop it in the comments. I mean that more than I've meant anything I've said tonight if you've made it this far. Thank you. I know that wasn't easy listening. 5 minds. 5 accounts separated by decades and continents and every conceivable difference in culture, language, and circumstance. And running through all of them, the same thread. The 7th level. The symbols no one can read. The entity that does not chase, does not threaten, does not need to, because it has all the time in the world and it knows, with a certainty older than human civilization, that we will keep digging. We always keep digging. Dale heard it knock. Robert Callahan was guided by it through collapsed tunnels in the dark. Mara saw whatever is on level 8 and chose silence over description. Patricia Voss wrote its language for 40 hours and cannot read a word of it. Ernst Brouwer sat down in the middle of a road at 3 in the morning, placed a carved stone on the hood of a stranger's truck, and walked back toward the thing that had already taken everything from him. I don't know what it wants. I'm not sure one is a concept that applies to something this old. I think it simply is. And I think it has been watching us dig toward it for 10,000 years with the same patience a mountain has for weather. Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one, and I mean that. Some of the best leads I've followed have come from people in this community. If you've worked in mining, if you've heard something you can't explain, if you recognize those symbols from anywhere at all, tell me. And one more thing. There's a 6th mine. I haven't decided if I'm covering it yet. Honestly, I'm not sure I should, but I know where it is. And I know